So when I was in elementary school, just about to turn 11 years old or so, I had a brilliant idea. I wanted to play the viola. And it wasn't a passion or anything either. I didn't really practice. I didn't really want to work on it. It was just a basic extracurricular for me. And when I was 13 or so, for whatever reason, it just struck me. I knew that I wanted to become a great viola player, and I knew that that's what I wanted to dedicate all my energy and all of my focus. So I had one goal after that point. I needed to become the best viola player possible and to hone my skills as most as I possibly could. Because make no mistake, at that age, I sucked. If you don't know anything about classical music, 13 is very late to start trying to become a pro musician. At 13, if you're a pianist or a violinist or something like that, it's pretty much considered that the ship has sailed if you've not developed some level of skill by that point. But I didn't care, and I wanted to try anyways. So for the next few years, I dedicated myself almost entirely to playing the viola. Through difficult family issues, through anything else that I had going on in life, I wanted one thing, and that was to become the best viola player that I possibly could. Short-sighted, I know. And largely thanks to my parents, I learned discipline and hard work. And these are skills that are impossible to master, but I think it's safe to say that I know these things on a deep and a personal level. And in my hometown of Pasco, Washington, the classical music support was very minimal, so I had to practically dig and claw for every bit of progress that I wanted to make on it. And of course, I had plenty of helping hands along the way and great influences because there is no possible way I could have done that alone. Even the most successful people who seem totally self-made, I think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, admit that they are very much not self-made and that the whole idea of somebody that is self-made is not entirely true. But in the end, after having a few years to work and hone my craft, it was time for music school auditions. And in the end, after applying to many schools and going through many audition rounds, I ended up getting into every single elite US conservatory that I auditioned for, with plenty of scholarship money to spare. A goal that would have seemed terrifying and pretty unlikely just a few years before, yet I did it with pretty reasonable room to spare. So there it is, right? Happy ending. How could my life possibly be ruined from that? And here's the kicker. Fast forward to now, and I'm here at music school, but really I've spent the last few years trying to find myself, and my focus isn't really entirely as a musician anymore in the way that it had been years prior. And guess what? At a place like this, I'm really not supposed to say that. But guess what? I'm here, I made it this far, but until recently, I honestly didn't have any idea what the fuck was happening, and I think a lot of people don't either. So no, my life wasn't ruined by any means, but at the same time, I definitely didn't set myself up for the life that I wanted going forward, despite all of the hard work that I had done prior. But for the past few years, I've worked to reverse that, and I've learned 3 major lessons from the experience that I want to share with you today. So without any further ado, let's just get right into it. Number 1, you need to thoroughly and entirely understand why you are pursuing a goal in the first place. You cannot mindlessly force a goal, even if you do end up achieving it. And I clearly found this out the hard way. What do you honestly think is on the other side of all the discipline, dedication, and hard work? As admirable as it is, what do you think is on the other side? Because I can tell you, it's not what you're picturing and it's not what you're expecting. If you're not currently living your life in a way that you want to keep living it for the rest of your days, then what do you think is going to change? Nothing, obviously. And that's why I constantly harp on the idea that discipline is not everything in seemingly almost every single video that I make, and that's because it simply isn't. That lesson is something that I wish I could have learned a few years ago. So unfortunately, I can't go into any more detail in this video because I want to keep this as a quick fire style video, so we're just going to keep moving right on to point number 2. And number 2 is that you need to keep your holistic wellness in check always to the best of your ability. And this is the area where you should actually be disciplined and where you should hold yourself to a very high standard on a consistent basis. And again, I'm not talking about anything excessive or superfluous, but just your being as a person in general. The fact is, I didn't care until recently, and now I'm left here to fill in the cracks after the fact. And I'm lucky I caught it early, not to mention the fact that most people do this late, if at all. So just to give a couple specifics, you should be staying on top of your energy levels, you should keep a kind of transparency and honesty about your emotional state at any given time, and you should be making an effort, and a consistent disciplined effort, to keep yourself in environments and situations that are generally happy and healthy for you, whatever that means for you, though it's going to be different for everybody. But again, no matter what age you are, this is something you can benefit from. So lastly, number 3, and tying back into the last 2, and that is just that you straight up just have to do what you want to do. Because for years, I sacrificed everything, thinking that it was the only way. And maybe for a small and needlessly specific version of my goal, it was the only way. But why restrict yourself to one thing and one way of doing things? What I've learned is that life is a holistic process, and one small thing cannot be your whole identity. It just can't. And if you want to suggest that I'm wrong, and maybe that's what you're doing, then very well, find it out for yourself. For all I know, maybe that is the right thing to do in your situation. I don't have any need to argue with you. The caveat, however, is that this cannot be an excuse for you to be lazy and avoid working hard. So be extremely honest with yourself. If what you want to do is just a disguised way of saying what's easiest, then you're also wrong. Guess what? Life is hard, life is work, and you better learn how to roll with the punches or you're just gonna get rocked. Now, if you don't know how to work hard in the first place, then believe me, you need to. That is not a step that you can skip and expect things to work out in your favor. However, this video is my call to those who are maybe a little bit more like me, who might actually benefit from hearing what I have to say today. So you know who you are. So that's what I've learned so far, from working hard to achieve my goals and seeing what's on the other side. So of course, my journey still has a long way to go, but I do feel that I'm an entirely different person than who I was just a few years ago. So I hope I could give you something valuable today, and if you enjoyed this style of content and you want to see a bit more of a varied selection, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button, which will bring my high quality uploads right to your homepage. So take care of your mind, especially when you don't feel like it.